Okay, so we've essentially wrapped up everything we needed to talk about price elasticity of demand. So we talked about the different types of price elasticity of demand in the sense of, is it inelastic? Is it elastic? Is it unit elastic? Is it perfectly inelastic? Is it perfectly elastic? We talked about the determinants of price elasticity of demand, how many substitutes there are, is it necessary, what's the share of the budget, how long can I wait until I have to make this purchase. We talked about the overarching definition, the change in quantity demanded that results from a change in price. So now, and we talk about how that affects revenue, where if you have an inelastic good, you would expect a price change to not change quantity demanded by too much, which means that revenue, price times quantity, will go up. And if you have an elastic good, quantity demanded will change a lot when there's a price change. So if the price increases and quantity demanded will go down by a lot, will decrease by a lot, so the revenue will go down. Okay, so now we've kind of exhausted everything we need to talk about with price elasticity of demand, and I want to consider other useful types of elasticities. So first on the docket, we have cross-price elasticity of demand. So as the name would suggest, it's pretty similar in the sense of it relates to quantity demanded and it relates to price. But what is a cross price? Well, think back to when we were talking about the demand shifters. Okay, we have substitute goods, and we have complementary goods. Cross-price elasticity of demand is essentially what determines whether something's considered a substitute good or a complementary good. Okay. Cross-price elasticity of demand is the price change, the quantity change that results from the cross-price change. The quantity that results as a result of the quantity change that comes about when the price of another good changes. So if the price of peanut butter increased, right, and you're looking at jelly, what's the quantity demand change for jelly? Does it decrease or does it increase? Okay, so cross-price elasticity of demand is how one price change, the price change of one good affects the quantity demanded of another good. Okay. So cross-price elasticity of demand tells us how the quantity demanded of one good responds to a change in price of another good. The price of peanut butter goes up. What do you expect to happen to the quantity demanded of jelly? You'd expect it to go down, right? Because these two things are complementary goods, right? So cross-price elasticity of demand can then be used to determine if goods are complements or substitutes. So we have a formal formula here that can tell us whether something's a substitute or a complement. So imagine you have two goods, X and Y, okay? So the price change happens in Y and it affects good X, okay? So PY is the price of Y, QX is the quantity demanded of good X. Cross-price elasticity of demand is then going to be given by the change in quantity of good X as a result of the change in price of good Y. Okay, and then the formula should look very similar. It's just we're adding in these X's and these Y's because it's going to be different goods X and Y. Okay, so unlike regular price elasticity of demand, we don't have to take absolute value the way that we did with price elasticity of demand, which isn't something I stressed when I was going over it, but usually price elasticity of demand should be negative because of the law of demand, and we might just give the answers as a positive, just out of a standardization. It doesn't matter if you give me price elasticity of demand as a negative or as a positive. It doesn't matter to me. Sometimes you might take absolute values. If you don't, I don't care. For cross price elasticity of demand, though, absolutely do not take absolute values. Do not take absolute values. The reason is if the price elasticity, or if the cross price elasticity of demand is greater than 0, that tells you whether or not it's a substitute or a complement. Same thing if it's less than 0. Okay? So if the cross-price elasticity of demand is less than 0, what does that mean? That means if price of Y goes up, then quantity demanded goes down, or vice versa. If quantity demanded goes up, price of Y must have gone down. Okay? You can see this because the new minus old is the change, right? So if the change in the numerator is negative, that means less people buy, and if this is positive, that means that the price is increased. So if less people buy good X because the price of Y increased, then the goods must be complements by the definition. Let me repeat that. If PY is positive, that means PY new is greater than PY old, right? Because PY new minus PY old has to be greater than 0. So if PY is positive, this is greater than this. If Q is negative, then this quantity new is less than quantity old. Okay, so that means price increased and the quantity demanded decreased. For price of good Y increased, quantity demanded of good X decreased. Okay, if the price of good Y increased and that charge it causes quantity demanded of good Y to good X to decrease, that means you have complements, right? If the price of peanut butter increases, you'd expect the quantity demanded of jelly to decrease. Okay, and vice versa. If the elasticity of demand is greater than 0, that means everything is working in the same direction. The numerator is working in the same direction as the denominator, which means that if the price of Y goes up, then this here is going to be positive. PY new is going to be greater than PY old, so the denominator is going to be positive. And if the numerator is positive, that means more people are demanding X after the price change, to the price increase, I should say, than we're demanding before the price increase. So as a result of a price increase in Y, there's a quantity demand increase in X, which means that they're substitutes. So if the price of CDs goes up, you'd expect more people to buy tapes. Okay, so that means they're substitutes. That's an old example for people who remember the 90s. Probably remember it better than me because I was still a child. Okay, so that's cross-price elasticity of demand, and I'm going to stop the video there.